Hello there guys, and welcome to Mad Doc Minis. In this video I'm going to be converting these Hernkyn Pioneers into something that I don't mind looking at, which may take some doing, but let's give it a go nonetheless. Firstly, the Pioneer needs to be built up to this level. You'll note that the rider has been attached, minus arms and head. The rear stowage and the top roll bar have also been attached, as well as the headlight piece at the front and the spherical mounting point for the repulsor plate. The side fairings have been deliberately left off, and that's important, and you'll see why later on in the video. Pause it if you need to, so you can understand the components that need to be put together at this stage. Next up, I used a plastic toy tennis racket to produce a front mounting fork. Now, you could scratch build this if you wanted to, but this produces the shape I need very, very easily. There we are. So I just cut a small section out and trim that down into an H shape. I don't have measurements for this, but you can get an idea of the size in a minute when we compare directly to the miniature. So take your time, tidy this up a little bit. A sharp hobby knife is also advisable just to trim down any rough bits on there. Now, once you've sufficiently tidied that up and you're happy, you'll need to do a little bit of a dry run on the miniature. Now that needs to slide onto the front forks, and you'll see here it warps when we do so. That's no good. So the bike itself needs to be trimmed down. These mounting points right at the front need to go, and they are trimmed back using a pair of hobby snips and a sharp craft knife just to tidy it up afterwards. If you do this sufficiently, you're buying yourself another couple of millimeters, and it should stop that warping effect on the front that we just saw there. So once you're happy with that, do another dry fit just to make sure you've taken off enough of that plastic material there, and it should look something like this, which is much nicer. That needs to get glued on. I just used super glue to do that, and a little bit of attention to detail to the alignment of the thing really helps if you want it to look nice. So once that's been attached on there, we need to think about the rear mounting forks for the repulsor plates. They need to be modified a little bit. There's a bit that sits proud on them, and that needs to be trimmed back. Once again, that's going to be done with hobby snips and a sharp craft knife in this case. The objective here is to create a nice, smooth, flat surface. Once you're happy with that, these components need to get attached onto the bike where they're supposed to go. Incidentally, this is why the rider has been attached at an early phase. It's not easy to keep the rider off for a separate painting, in my view. It's better to put him on at this phase, but of course, do what you want to. So once those have been attached either side, we then need to think about modifying them further. And I do that using a small Lego component. I'll throw the component number up on the screen. It's a small 1x1 circular tile piece, and you're going to need a few of them. So I use one on each side here. This is what it looks like. And it's going to get glued flat side down onto that bit you've just shaved back. The shape of it actually helps for placement of the piece as well, as you'll see. There we are, one each side on those. Once that's been done, you need to take a couple more of them and trim the rim off around the edge. You could use cardstock or any kind of thin material for this if you preferred, but I had these lying around and decided to use them instead. Be careful with your fingers here if you're doing what I'm doing. Once that's been done, you should have a very flat disc, and that's going to get inserted into a Space Marine bike wheel. And that's just to cover up some of the detail underneath and also raise the centre of the wheel a little bit so it can be easily attached to the bike. You need to do that both sides. There we are. That gets put to one side for a second. The rear wheels get attached on, same Space Marine bike wheels again. Hot glue works really well on the rear wheels here. The front wheel then gets attached. Those bits in the centre that we've raised up allow good contact for the glue. Super glue on the front wheel worked for me. And that's virtually complete for the wheels. We then need to attach the front fairings on here, and they need to be modified slightly. So there's a mounting point on the front end of these that needs to be trimmed down. Once again, a pair of hobby snips and a sharp knife does the trick for this. So you need to take off that little stump there, and I will do a direct comparison so you can see what I'm talking about more clearly. And this should allow these parts to be put on the bike with no problems. Quick comparison, there we are, on the left, trimmed down, on the right, unmodified. So it's time to attach those to the bike, and they should go on with no problems. And that really ties it in nicely as it sits over that front fork that's been modified. There we are, both sides done, looking good. We just need to really complete the rest of the bike. The arms and the head on the rider and any other stowage and details that you want to put on there need to go on at this phase. So I'm going to put a basic tabletop paint job on this and show the completed model to you, as well as some other models from my Votann collection to see what you think. Thanks very much, guys. Okay guys, so these are the trikes. I've got some other models arrayed here that I'll just quickly show you as well. So I'm not going to stick this on a rotating platform as I normally do because I just want to do a bit of a rundown on some of the other models that I've got for the Votann. And I've gone for the winter theme. You can see this isn't mould, don't worry, it's snow effects, Valhalla Blizzard snow effects, which I really like incidentally. And yeah. So this is much more what I would have wanted from the original kit. I just thought the hover trike thing was a little bit clumsy as a kit. I just didn't like it. And this makes me much happier. You could obviously do a much more refined job in comparison to what I've done. I mean, I haven't done much tidying up look on this at all. I just kind of slapped it together and gave it a very basic paint job, but it makes me happy. And that's the most important thing with your hobby. Be happy with what you're doing and find your own kind of pace and your own niche to things is my big advice. But anyway, so I've got 3 of those, or 4 if you include the heavy weapon. Okay, so that's them. I've got 3 Thunderkin here. These are the big kind of mech walker guys, and apologies that the sunlight's coming through quite brightly there. Hopefully that's not interfering too much with the quality of the video. And yeah, they're just put together as is. And of course the same is true for the regular infantry here. I didn't do any conversion work. I just kind of put those together, and I'm really, really happy with those. They look really, really good. I like the Votann models. In fact, that was probably the only thing I really didn't like. I'm not too much of a fan of the big wheeled fortress, actually. I think that looks a little bit clumsy as well, but the Sagittor is a beautiful model, which I'll hopefully get quite soon. But if you're still here, I really wanted to show you this. Now, this is a conversion, or not really even a conversion. I mean, I didn't do a video on it because there was no conversion work. It was just a paint job, really. And this is from the Lightyear movie, Disney Lightyear movie toy range. This is from the Hyperspeed series, which happens to scale really, really well with Warhammer. Look at that. That's beautifully scaled to Warhammer. And that was on sale for £8, 8 UK pounds. And that's really good value for something this size for Warhammer. I mean, if you were getting a Warhammer kit of this size, that would probably be 40 to 50 pounds easily, and that was £8, and with a little bit of a paint job, a tiny bit of conversion work. I just put some granny grating down on the inside there and threw some lead belcher in there just to give a suggestion of an interior, but it works really well as a dropship. You can have kind of troops coming out from there. You could use it as a static terrain piece if you like, just kind of sitting there, sort of half considering putting snow effects on this, but then you're kind of limiting it a little bit if you do that. So I'm undecided about that at the moment, but you get the idea. I actually picked up a few of these. So I've got a couple of spares that I can either bend to the Votann's will, or I can kind of do something else with. All right, so that's that. I do plan on doing some terrain as well for this Votann army, so stay tuned for that if you're interested. I have got an enormous one of these as well that's more for 4-inch action figures, much, much bigger than this, with more action features on it actually, and I might convert that over to be like a larger Votann dropship. I think 1 or 2 people have done things with those already just because they're such good value. I mean, that big one is about, and that's huge, that would fill up, it'd be bigger than the screen here, you know, I'd fill it up. And that is about £15 at the moment on sale in the UK. And, you know, that's a lot of model for that money. And it's got a nice big kind of cavernous interior to it, so you can do lots with it. I think I spied MS Paints has done a conversion on that bigger model, so go and check that out if you're curious. I'm probably going to do my own thing with mine, which I got a couple of months back. I just haven't got around to doing anything with them really. But that one's been done for a few weeks now, and I didn't do a video because actually there's no conversion work. It was just the bit inside. Otherwise it was just a paint job, and I didn't really classify myself as a painter, so it didn't really warrant a video. But I hope you found that interesting, guys. If you've enjoyed the content, please consider liking and sharing. It really does help the channel to grow. And if you're not already subscribed, consider giving me a sub. Thanks ever so much for the support, guys. Really appreciate it. And I will see you in the next video. Cheers.